pirates, yes, they rob and sold out to the merchant ships. Minutes after they took out from the bottomless pit, my head was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Oh, have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. Got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Oh, have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. Got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs. It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs, redemption songs.
Hey, what's up, troops? Ops Sgt-Maj with Veterans for Freedom, Jeff Evely, back with you now on this 11th day of January 2024. All right, I got the year right this time. We got a great show lined up for you here today, and we got the regulars on board with us here this morning. I didn't share this out this morning, so please, please, please give a brother an assist with this one and share it out. I am the worst guy, I swear, for not sharing my own stuff. Little off my game here this morning. I think I'm rusty. I've been working a lot on my legal challenges as of late, so haven't been doing as many live streams as usual, but I do appreciate everybody who is here with me this morning. Gloria is saying good day, everyone, and Darlene is saying good morning, everyone tuning in from New Brunswick. I've shared it out. Thank you so much, Darlene, for always providing the top cover. Marion says, good morning, everyone. And thanks, Marion, for always being with us. I do appreciate you. And Levy's J.A., Trudeau Musco, we are Canadian, says, I hope James is well. Love that man. Yeah, James is well, as far as I'm aware. Actually, he is doing just fine. I think James is taking the approach of this is James Top that we're talking about for anybody who's not tracking, but he is taking the approach of the Lone Ranger, do a good deed, leave a silver bullet, ride off into the sunset. And I can't say I blame him. I mean, we've all kind of, in the veteran community, there are a lot of us who have kind of had enough of the battle, I guess. We've not a whole lot left to prove or anything like that. And he just kind of made his contribution, and now it's time to move on. So definitely can't fault him for that. And we all appreciate what James did immensely. Gail is saying, bless our veterans. Good morning. Thank you very much. Good morning to you. Wild Bill Rydell is here this morning with us here, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, Jeff. Good morning to you, Wild Bill. I appreciate you always being on here with me. I got Bill is like my favorite boomer, man. You really are, bro. So, and Friday, Terry says, good morning, everyone. And give us the triple slashy. Good morning to you, and triple slashy right back at you. And Darlene is saying, James left his mark with Canadians. Yeah, I think he definitely did. He will be remembered, I think, forever. And RJ Sawyer is calling him the Topinator. Yeah, that was a really good meme that was going around at the time. He marched all the way across Canada. He's the only Canadian to ever do that. So I think he'll find his place in history once we get this mess sorted out, of course, because as it stands right now, the propaganda says that he's a right-wing Nazi or some such nonsense. But Rachel Gilmore did end up getting fired over that. I'm pretty sure it was over that. We'll probably never know that for sure. There's a non-disclosure agreement in place, I'm sure. But at the same time, the timing was right. And Debbie is here saying good morning. Good morning to you, Debbie. All right. I'm going to go ahead and dive right into it here, folks. Here is our philosophy quote for the day. Not exactly a philosopher, but, it's not far off when we're dealing with a lot of comedians. That seems to be the case a lot of the time. The really good comedians kind of border on that philosophy. There's something about telling a really good joke that reveals a deeper truth, and it does it in a way that makes you feel ashamed for laughing at it. It's and then you laugh at yourself for being ashamed for laughing at it, and so on and so forth. So that's how you do a really good layered joke. And this is George Carlin. He says, "The obedient always think of themselves as virtuous rather than cowardly." We see that a lot, and that is the thing. Is it's just like that's what everybody's always screaming at us on the woke side of the house. Is it's just we just won't do as we're told. We're misbehaving, so we're bad people for not doing what we're told. But of course, that was the attitude of those guards at the ovens of Auschwitz. So it seems that we're still having to learn the lessons of history, and history is not over. I think that is a pretty widespread perception that history is over because the Second World War is over and we had the Nuremberg trials and all that. But I think that a lot of folks who are tuning into this here this morning understand that if there's ever going to be any kind of healing over all of this, there needs to be something on the level of a Nuremberg 2, a jurisprudential reckoning of some sort. And Bill is saying that George was a prophet. Yeah, I really appreciate George's work. He was a pretty brilliant guy. Okay, here's our meme for the day, and this is a Star Trek TNG meme, and you've got Riker, and he's sitting next to Deanna there, and he says, "My first home had a 4-foot ceiling. I couldn't stand to live there." Walk, walk. I love dad jokes. Yeah. And I'm throwing this up here because it is sort of emblematic of where we're going with the housing situation in Canada. People are living with 4-foot ceilings, tents, that kind of thing. So they can't stand to live there. Okay, and here's an update as of this morning. DonaldBest.ca is tweeting out saying, urgent notice, please repost Grus hearing, new time, January 11th, 2024 at 12:30 p.m. So that'll be Eastern. That's about 3.5 hours from now. And it says, sources report that the chaos today at the disciplinary hearing for Ottawa Police Detective Helen Grus resulted in 2 events. One, a late afternoon, early evening meeting with very senior officers were briefed on the defense allegations that Professional Standards Inspector Hugh O'Toole committed the criminal offense of intimidating a justice system participant, Criminal Code 423.11b, obstruction of justice, Criminal Code 139.2 and 3. It is alleged that Inspector O'Toole sent a threatening email to Detective Grus just minutes before she was to testify, instructing her not to testify to certain documentary evidence. 2, the delay of the start of the January 11th, 2024 hearing to enable senior OPS legal counsel this morning to assess the damage. The sources state that senior OPS legal counsel will not only review the allegations against Inspector O'Toole, but also the performance of Grus prosecutor Vanessa Stewart. Yes, prosecutorial misconduct across the board. We're seeing this all over the place. That was a theme of the Coots 4 hearings as well, where the judge had advised the prosecutor that he may want to seek counsel. So these are the people who think that they're decent people because they're obedient, just as George Carlin is saying here. But it doesn't take any courage to be obedient, and I think that courage is probably a necessary constituent of virtue. So that's where we are right now, is all these people pretending to be virtuous, as Elon Musk said. I can't remember the exact quote, but he said he's sick and tired of everybody going around pretending to be virtuous while doing evil things. And that is exactly what we see happening here right now. So that's happening today, guys. That's January 11th, 2024. It looks like there's going to be a new hearing and all this stuff because of this misconduct and intimidation that is kind of the standard these days, don't you think? Okay, so moving on here is we're going to do some stuff on the incident with David Mezies. Here is everybody's been calling him the cop who arrested him, the RCMP officer who framed David Mezies for assaulting a police officer and then arrested him so he wouldn't be able to ask any questions of Chrystia Freeland. Everybody's been calling him Uncle Fester, but this is a pretty good likeness as well, I think. And it's Mini-Me from Austin Powers. So yeah, that's I think probably a more apt comparison. All right. And here we have the CBC actually reporting on the incident. Rebel News is tweeting out this clip, and they have a quote from the clip. So I think I'll just go ahead and play it, but check this out.
The RCMP is facing criticism for arresting a man who identified himself as a journalist. David Mezies works for Rebel News. He tried to ask the Deputy Prime Minister some questions.
Okay, so I got a kick out of this because he says a man identifying as a journalist. He doesn't just say a journalist. He says a man identifying as a journalist, as if he's like trans journalist or something. And then the next words out of his mouth are somebody who works for Rebel News. So if you work for a news organization and you're asking questions, you're a journalist, right? But they don't want to admit that because, well, they're these are the propagandists who identify as journalists, and so they don't want to admit that David is a real journalist.
Questions.
Much better person than them.
Yesterday in Richmond Hill, Ontario, when the arrest happened. The CBC's Kate McKenna is following the story in Ottawa, and she joins us now live. So, Kate, what can you tell us about this incident?
Well, Andrew, this is a video that's making quite a splash online. The video shows David Mezies approaching Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland yesterday in Ontario. It was captured on video by Rebel News.
Ms. Freeland, how come the IRGC is not a terrorist group? Why is your government supporting Islamo-nationalism? What? You idiots. What are you doing?
You're under arrest for assault. Why are you pushing me? You're under arrest for assault. You're under arrest for assault. Please.
And that's a total shakedown, by the way. I talked about this last night, but just in case you missed it, I'll back it up again. Like you can see what's going on here. Highly suspicious, because here is David coming up to scrum Chrystia Freeland, and she has one of her aides here next to her. And the aide is over here on the left of Freeland, as David is on the right, and he's coming up to ask this question. And as they're just strutting along, you can see this aide kind of breaks off, and she moves over to David's right instead of to his far left. So she crosses over as they approach this pole, and he comes up here where this RCMP officer who's behind the pole all of a sudden ends up in front of the pole as David is fixated on Freeland. And then, oops, David bumps into him. First words out of his mouth are, "Excuse me." And at the same time, we see Freeland, she is making that same break to follow her aide to the other side of the pole here. And I can't help but think that's a bit of a satisfied look on this aide's face here. So it looks like they probably had some advanced knowledge of what was going to happen. I mean, it's a little bit speculative, but man, just read the body language, right?
Arrest for assault. Why are you pushing me? You're under arrest for assault. You're under arrest for assault. Police, you're under arrest for assault. How am I under arrest? You bumped into me. You pushed into me. I was just scrubbing. I got my credentials here, and you just bumped into me. So excuse me. You're under arrest. What is your name and your badge? What is your name and your badge?
Just the tone on this guy, like, stop misbehaving. Okay, you're gonna get a timeout now.
Why am I under arrest? He blocked my way. What? I was just scrumming Chrystia Freeland.
I'm a police officer. You're under arrest.
What is your name and your badge number?
Assaulting a police officer.
How is that possible?
So just,
Of course, he doesn't give his name and his badge number.
to kind of reiterate a little bit of what we saw in that video, we saw that Mezies tried to ask a question to Chrystia Freeland when he's blocked by the RCMP's security detail, and then told that he's under arrest. And he responds by saying, well, he was just asking questions, and moves to show his credentials to the RCMP detail. That video
He's even credentialed, and yet he's just a man who identifies as a journalist.
Video was released by Rebel News. It's not the entire video. The full version of the video goes on to show Mr. Mezies being arrested by York Regional Police. We did reach out to that police service that said that he was later released for having not posed a credible threat to the public, and he was released without conditions. Now, David Mezies is a reporter for Rebel News, which is a media organization that prides itself on its own website of being outside of mainstream media. It presents itself as having a conservative worldview.
It's so awkward having to explain this.
But this move from the RCMP detail is receiving quite a bit of criticism online and from some prominent people for how Mr. Mezies was treated by police. It was also criticized by the leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, who posted on X, formerly known as Twitter, saying, this is the state of freedom of the press in Canada in 2024. Now, it is worth noting that this is not the first time Mezies has been arrested in trying to speak to politicians. In fact, even prior today, there was already a website that was set up intended to fundraise on behalf of Mezies when he is arrested. And you know, it's also happened when he's talked to conservative politicians. For instance, he was forcibly removed from an Andrew Scheer event as well as a Melissa Lantsman event in 2021. But
Speaks to the state of freedom of the press in Canada, not to any character deficiency on the part of David Mezies.
Ezra Levant, the publisher of the website, is saying that they are considering legal action, and they're also fundraising for that legal action on a website that's been set up following, or not following, but being promoted as part of this arrest that happened yesterday. The RCMP has not responded to request for comment.
All right, there you go. The propaganda machine having to acknowledge Rebel News. That is glorious. And Terry is saying he was released because there were no charges, not a threat to the community. LOL. Yeah, gotta love the spin on that one. Eh? Like, they didn't even charge him. They couldn't charge him because he had that backdrop cameraman there. That was something I was saying to Daisy last night. We should probably have a secondary camera on Daisy while he's out there, in case this stuff starts happening to him. You got to have eyes on everybody all the time, it seems, these days. Okay. And, that's probably a wise approach, I think. Everybody watching everybody else, everybody keeping everybody else on the up and up, that kind of thing. Okay, so here is government.exe is corrupt. And they say, breaking, a major technical problem has been reported with the CBC radio service going down nationwide, leaving nearly a dozen people without access to its network. They are broadcasting to CBC Listen app, but unfortunately, anyone who listens to CBC is over 80 and has no phone. Yes, well done. Government.exe is corrupt. That's a pretty good account. So feel free to give him a follow. Okay, here's the Toronto Red Star saying Justin Trudeau and his Liberals hit new lows in support, poll suggests. New data from Abacus Data shared exclusively with the Star shows the Conservatives reversing their December slide. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that December slide was really anything. It was probably just an anomaly, really. And this is from 10 January, so yesterday. Ottawa. At the dawn of a new year that could see the federal Conservatives continue to outpace the slumping Liberals, fresh polling suggests Justin Trudeau and his government are entering 2024 with some of its worst ever levels of support. The news numbers from the Abacus data shared exclusively with the Star show that Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives reversed their 5 percentage point drop in the polls from December by gaining 4 points during the research firm's latest round of polling. But the finding offers the grimmest outlook for yet for the Trudeau Liberals since they ascended to power, with the survey showing that 58% of Canadians disapprove of the federal government. Yeah, that I think it works in our favor, folks. And that 5-point slide, who knows? Like, it could be Abacus data just kind of fudging the numbers or screwing it up somehow. Quote, if the Liberals were hoping that 2024 would start with some positive mood and maybe a shift in public perception, I don't see any evidence of that yet, close quote. Abacus Data CEO David Coletto said, quote, in fact, I continue to see a worsening, close quote. The survey, conducted between January 4th to 9th with a respective sample of 1,500 Canadians, also found that the number of people who would consider voting for the Liberals hit a new low of 41%. Really? It's that high? That's the same figure posted by the NDP and 13 points lower than the 54% of Canadians who would vote for the Conservatives. And, you know, this 41%, like I remember the sponsorship scandal was something like they slid to third-party status over that. And with everything that's happening in the last few years, it's like, holy smokes, it's hard to believe that they're not below where they were with the sponsorship scandal. But I was thinking about this, and I think that it has everything to do with the demographics that are in play. The demographics have shifted, and that is something I talk about a lot around here, as many of you who tune in regularly understand. But the thing is that the more conservative generations, like say the GI generation, for example, they're not around anymore. You know, there's only a handful of them left, and so all the people who would have looked at a corrupt government and, you know, been and voted against it, been like, you know, enough is enough already. Those people seem to be gone, and what we're left with is more like the ideologues, particularly in the boomer generation, as I'm always pointing out, and also the millennial generation, because they tend to take after the boomers, and that's how generations work, is we tend to have more in common with our grandparents' generation than we do with our parents' generation. Every generation rebels against its next elders, and the boomers rebel against the GI generation. So yeah, a lot of the people who used to be voting, I guess, honestly, they're not around anymore. And what we're left with is a lot of ideologues. That's what happens in the fourth turning, is old heroes die. So heroes being the GI generation who won the Second World War. Okay, back to the article. Perceptions of Trudeau himself also suffered over the holiday season, with 59% of those surveyed, another all-time low, having a negative view of the Prime Minister. Poor impressions of Poilievre, meanwhile, dropped by 4 percentage points to 32%, while the NDP's Jagmeet Singh held relatively steady at 33%. Holy smokes, is he really getting that much? Quote, I think the Liberals thought what was maybe a good December for them hasn't moved any of the underlying opinions about the government and the Prime Minister at all, close quote, Coletto said. Quote, I think it just underscores how deep the desire for change is right now in the country, and how much of that is being driven by anxiety around affordability, around healthcare, and a sense that the government's not really able to address those things effectively, close quote. Overall, 24% of Canadians would vote for the Liberals if a federal election were held now, compared to 41% for the Conservatives and 18% for the New Democrats. All right, continue that slide. Coletto said the Liberals may have benefited last month from Poilievre's move to vote against a free trade deal with Ukraine and the opposition leader's misleading claims that the deal would impose a carbon tax on the war-torn nation. Yeah, I'm not so sure about all of that. Like, just stop funneling all of our money off to foreign dictators. We're actually borrowing money so we can funnel it off to foreign dictators. And I think it is part of the economic warfare strategy to bankrupt the West. The Liberals' decision to go toe-to-toe with the Tories on that front, as well as their focus on housing issues, may have temporarily diverted negative attention to the Conservatives, Coletto said, but that didn't pay off for the Liberals over the rest of the holidays. Over the past week, Trudeau has drawn criticism for going on a post-Christmas vacation to Jamaica, which his office later clarified was offered to the Prime Minister and his family at no cost after initially indicating they would pay for their accommodations. Yeah, so it was a gift, and there's a conflict of interest at play, no doubt. The Conservatives seized on the subject Wednesday, dropping an online attack ad that contrasted Canadians' affordability woes with Trudeau's pay for stay. Conservative ethics critic Michael Barrett said later in the day that he had written to Interim Ethics Commissioner Conrad von Finkelstein asking what he knew of media reports that Trudeau was staying at a pricey luxury villa owned by a family friend. Yeah, it was like $9,500 a night or some crap. It was an insane amount, like just a very opulent gift to the leader of our country. So, and the problem with these conflicts of interest is that it raises the question of where a person's loyalties really do lie. Is he loyal to the people who pay his salary or to the people who give him these lavish gifts? The Prime Minister's office told the Canadian press last week that von Finkelstein had been consulted on the details of the trip before it was taken. The matter may have rankled Canadians who continued to list the rising cost of living, healthcare, and access to housing as their top three concerns in Apicus' last poll. But it was immigration, which ranked sixth, with 19% of Canadians listing it as one of their top three issues. Then Coletto said to keep an eye on as the new year gets underway. Quote, it's up 5 points in 4 months. So that's so it's the one moving. And it's related, as we've shown in other research, to concern about the healthcare system, concerns about housing. And I think it's probably one of the sleeper issues to continue to watch in 2024, close quote, Coletto said. Yeah, I think he's right on that one, because it is sort of the root cause of a lot of these issues. The healthcare system is being overwhelmed, and the housing market is continuing to get more and more unaffordable as they drive up the demand with mass immigration. And there's no corresponding increase in supply. So it's just a simple issue of supply and demand, where we have too many people chasing too few goods, as Polyev might say it. And it's as true for the housing sector as it is anywhere else. Leaves J on X is saying, and why are we still paying for Sophie? Yeah, Sophie went on that trip as well. I wonder if she brought her boyfriend, Idris Elba. That's what I'd really love to know. Did Sophie go along with her boyfriend? That sounds like, because we do have a cock for a prime minister, so that sounds about right. Okay, so here is Laurie Goldstein, and he says 10 Liberal MPs have decided not to run again, and more are expected to bow out ahead of what pollster Nick Nanos describes as likely the most difficult election for the Trudeau Liberals since they came to power in 2015. And he's retweeting this Hill Times article here. So this is good news. I mean, the ranks are breaking. Even these people don't want to be associated with the Liberal Party anymore, it seems. And that's the Hill Times article. And I'm not going to read the whole thing or anything, but I like is what needs to happen for the fourth turning. Now, the political power is not really what matters as much as the institutional power. Like, it's the old guard of the party that really matters. And that old guard at this particular moment in our history is the boomer generation. And as we've seen from the history of them running Canada's military, it's not a good show at all. So that's what's been going on with Canada's military since the 90s. And now that's what's going on with all of our institutions, political parties included. But it's not really the MPs that matter as much as the old guard, because they're the ones who kind of pick and choose who gets to run and tell everybody what to say. And they're the ones who put the words into Trudeau's mouth. He is aptly described as a sock puppet, and the people who doing the puppeteering are the boomer generation in the old guard of the party. But just check this out. Like, this is mostly a boomer exodus. We have these two guys here who are more like elder Gen Xers who tend to be pretty corrupt as well, because they were left alone with the boomers for too long. But this is a good sign, I think. A really good sign. A lot of them are not running again. So, and here is Maxime Bernier, and he's tweeting out Poilievre's current House leader Andrew Scheer, the fake conservative who was installed as leader of the party by the milk cartel, also got the Menzoid arrested at a campaign stop in 2019. Poilievre, and that was mentioned in that CBC report as well. Poilievre defending Rebel News Online today, pretending to care about freedom of the press and exploiting this story is the height of hypocrisy when you know that two of his main collaborators also got Menzies arrested because he wanted to ask them questions. Yep. And again, this is, I think, this is illustrative of the kind of role that the old guard plays, because Maxime Bernier should be leading the Conservative Party right now, but he ended up losing that leadership race to Blandrew Scheer, of all people. Like, who the hell wants to put that? Well, I'll tell you who. It's the boomers. They like nice boys. That's why they funded all the boy bands and none of the Seattle Sound back in the 90s. And Maxime Bernier, he's not a nice boy, but Blandrew Scheer is. So they were looking for their Justin Trudeau that they could put out there, and he lost that leadership race officially at a 49-51 count. And they were like, well, we want a recount. And they're like, sure, you can have a recount, but we shredded all the ballots. So nothing to see here, folks. And Maxime Bernier went off and did his own thing. And I think he's a really important actor in the political ecosystem right now in Canada, because he's out there, practicing radical candor, which is what I advocate for. And they're calling them fake conservatives that were installed by the milk cartel. I think that's a pretty good way to put it. And there is he's retweeting this picture of David Mezies getting arrested at the behest of Blandrew Scheer. So meet the old boss the same, or meet the new boss the same as the old boss. And okay, let's see. And and Gary is saying, I feel the same as you and I'm a boomer. Yeah, all my boomers are good to go, guys. Of course, it is a social trend, not a social rule. The real world is analog, not digital, and there are plenty of exceptions out there. And, we need the boomers. We need boomers, like Dr. Peter McCullough and the like, to kind of lead the way through this. Okay, here is Veterans for Freedom. Oh, that's us. We're tweeting out the CAF the CAF keeping the standards high. 47 of the 100+ military occupations, just under 50%, say there is no longer the requirement for passing the CFAT. So the CFAT is the Canadian Forces Aptitude Test. This is like a basic requirement for entering the military. The IQ test was developed by the U.S. military back in the day to determine, who could be useful in the military. And they determined that anybody with an IQ lower than 85 could do no occupation anywhere in the military, not even a cook, nothing. Sorry about that, cooks, but you get what I mean. Some of the ones that just require the lowest scores are cook and well, I don't mind really bagging on the cook so much in light of Clayton Goodwin. So yeah, that's that is the thing, is you need to have a certain level of aptitude in order to do any job at all in the military. And so they're just laying waste to this basic standard for like half of the occupations. And yeah, you're going to end up with, I think, a force that is not only incapable, but a lot of people who will just do and think whatever they are told. Okay, continuing with the tweet. The CFAT is the Canadian Forces Aptitude Test, which tests the applicant's English, math, and spatial awareness, which determines with which occupations you are suited for. This is a recipe for disaster, as being able to communicate through common language is critical to CAF training and operations. Yeah, communication is key. I can't overemphasize that at all. Communication is so important. This has most likely been implemented to accommodate the 2,600 permanent residents who, according to our CFRG, that's the Canadian Forces Recruiting Group source, are mostly, quote unquote, East Indian, who use, quote unquote, broken English and, quote, clearly use Google Translate to send emails, close quote. Oh, yeah, this is going to be so functional. We're going to be a high functioning, efficient force with, and this is something that happens during the fourth turning. It's what happened at the end of the Roman Empire as well, where they started filling the ranks with a lot of the barbarian tribes. and a lot of the people who were loyal, the legionnaires who were loyal to the empire, they left the ranks in droves, and all that was left was a lot of the barbarian tribes and so on and so forth. And then when it comes time to defend the country, when you have to go to war with, say, Gaul or Thracians or whatever, that's the people that you have in the ranks. And people by nature maintain their allegiances first and foremost to their families, and then after that it's tribes. So how likely are the people you are paying to fill these ranks to go to war with one of those tribes, one of their own tribes, when the need arises? And I don't think that we're on the precipice of war with India exactly, but China could be a real issue at some point in the very near future. I'll get to that later in the program. And here is we're tweeting at the graphic here. It says the expedited application trial is an initiative where some applicants to regular force in certain occupations will not be required to write the Canadian Forces aptitude test and trait self-descriptor personality inventory before enrollment. Oh my God. Yeah, that personality inventory is an important one as well. It's kind of like a psych eval almost, but not quite. So personality matters as well. The initiative is meant to enhance flexibility in operations by allowing, you're not going to be able to conduct operations if you've got a bunch of dummies in the ranks. The initiative is meant to enhance flexibility in operations by allowing new options to applicants, which should expedite the application process and improve the onboarding experience. Applicants who elect to participate in this trial will still be required to meet the required standards of other suitability and assessment standards. And here are the trades that they're exempting from this requirement. Bosun, that's the Marine Systems Engineering. These are the officers, and these are the NCM. Bosun, naval communicator, naval combat information operators, naval electronic sensor operator, and armor soldier. Really? Like the sensor operators and the combat information operators, they don't need a CFAT? Are you kidding me? Naval communicator? What the heck? Anyway, so, and here is the officers who don't have to be smart. Marine Systems Engineering Officer, Naval Combat Systems Engineering Officer, Armor Officer, Artillery Officer, and Electrical and Mechanical Engineering Officer. You don't have to be smart to do engineering, I guess. Okay. And there's a whole slew more of them. Let me see. Let me just look at some of these. Electronic, optronic technician. I don't know. You might have to be a little bit smart for that. Line technician is a lineman. Those are the infantry of the communications and electronic branch. And it is technical work. Like, you got to have some skill. Avionics systems technician. What? AVS doesn't, they're like, this is like, these are electronics trades. Fin clerk, okay, whatever, but that's not exactly the same as a lot of these technical trades that they're putting up here as well. Intelligence officer don't have to be intelligent. I mean, we've said that for years. It's a job description, not a job requirement. So signals officer, though, like that's usually an engineering degree to be a signals officer. That's incredible. Engineer officer, communications and electronic engineering. That's a Sealy officer. Like, oh my God! Some of my best friends are Sealy officers, and they all have masters in engineering. Like one of my best friends, one of my best bros in my whole career, is a PhD in electrical engineering, but apparently he doesn't need a CFAT. That is incredible. All right, this is incredible. Just chaplain. Well, personnel selection officer. I could see that. They're so stupid. Oh my God! I went to see them one time about my commissioning, which I ended up turning down, but. They didn't even understand how the pay scale worked. I had to explain it to them. It's pretty incredible. Oh my God! Like, what do you need a CFAT to do? This is incredible. Okay, this is so. Yeah, the military is definitely in decline, and that is the first institution to go in decline. It started back in the 90s, and the second institution to enter the fourth training would have been the financial sector with the 2008 collapse. Anyway, this is where we are right now. The military is in a total state of collapse. And Century 2020 over on YouTube is saying, this is really disturbing. Yeah, it is pretty disturbing because we seem to have just a bunch of barbarians entering the ranks at this point. And that's what we're going to have, is a horde where our military used to exist. Okay, and here's Cosmondurias, and he says, "This is what the typical issue of the typical issue of the Canadian Military Journal looks like today. Canada is racist. White people are evil. The military is full of white supremacy. Supporting families is patriarchy. Our military is entirely compromised." Yeah, and these dummies are going to just lap up this kind of propaganda and hate us all. And I mean, that's what we're setting ourselves up for here. Is we have a force who will just do and think whatever the hell they're told. They're not smart enough to think critically, and they indoctrinate them into a woke communist ideology. So, you know, what we're going to end up with is the kind of military that we see in like these third world shitholes, where they're pretty good at oppressing their own citizens, but absolutely useless when it comes to fighting wars. And here is the article that he's tweeting out here. It says, "I'm not your typical white soldier interrogating whiteness and power in the Canadian Armed Forces. Give me a break." This is critical theory, critical race theory in particular. This is where I got off the crazy train personally when, you know, I was being told that I had to go out there and gaslight the troops with all of that microaggression BS. In 2021, would have been around the spring of 2021, and it was just it was rotten. I mean, we did, and this is another thing, they don't take training seriously in the military, especially when it comes to a lot of this indoctrination stuff. The soft skill stuff is all train the trainer. So it's like your superior gives you the training and then you turn around and give it to your subordinate. And so I did the training with the whole leadership team, and they all turned on each other right there in the training, just based on all this microaggression crap and unconscious bias. It's just freaking gaslighting. It's Stalinism is what it is. And I watched it polarize the whole leadership team there at the unit that I finished up my career at in Ottawa. And, you know, I was the only guy who kind of came back and said, like, you guys are awful. And they were kind of like, well, maybe you don't want to be the sergeant major anymore. And I was like, yeah, I don't think I do. So, and here's the other one: supporting military families, challenging or reinforcing patriarchy, because families are patriarchy. Yeah, of course. And these are the families who are, you know, can't even get access to housing because they didn't build any military housing, like since the Second World War, basically. And a lot of the, you know, there's asbestos and a lot of the different buildings being condemned, and we have soldiers living in their cars and so on and so forth. But if you have a problem with that, then, you know, you're just a tyrannical patriarch and sexist and so on and so forth. Look at this. Look at this. Long write-ups on patriarchy, colonialism, white supremacy. This is all part of the commie psyop. The colonialism one, that started with the Russians back in the 50s. This is the psyop to weaken and destroy the West that the Russians have engaged in since the end of the Second World War. And they, you know, Yuri Bezmenev said that they did go into our institutions, into the schools, and indoctrinate people into this kind of hate your own society mentality. And those people, like that generation that he said, they graduated in the 60s. So, you know, that's the boomer generation, and they're at peak institutional power right now. And this is full-blown wokeness at this point. I think the Chinese have also picked up on this stuff, especially when it comes to the white supremacy and all that garbage. But they've been using this kind of propaganda to gaslight the West, to make people stop believing in their own society and to hate it for decades now. So that's coming to our military. They hate our own society. So where do you see that going? Here's Matthew Horwood, and he's saying, a member of the Royal Canadian Navy who posted support online for quote unquote minor attracted persons, also known as pedophiles, received a $2,000 fine and a reprimand that is logged on her employment records, but was not demoted. In its ruling, the Navy noted that the member made the comment, quote, people can't choose who they're attracted to. And if the adult approaches the child and the child says yes, then they are both consenting, close quote, in her Instagram page. No, children can't consent, okay? That's why we have a legal age limit and so on and so forth. Like they're vulnerable. Their squishy little brains aren't fully formed yet. And you know, they're easily taken advantage of by people in positions of authority, and basically every adult appears to be somebody in a position of authority to a child. So finishing out the tweet here, it says, the woman also wrote that, quote, minor attracted persons' rights are human rights, and the map is a legitimate part of the queer community and culture, close quote. Well, that's just sick, right? So, and there's an Epoch Times article on that if you want to go check that out. Yeah, I think she probably arrived at these conclusions by reading something from Woke Wayner, General Ayer's recommended reading list, just based on a lot of what he's been posting there lately. He's got all this nonsense about the same patriarchal systemic racism and all that stuff. So, and the systemic racism narrative is something that they have been pushing on the military, especially in the wake of George Floyd. Not really George Floyd, but the CBC and all the media in Canada. They needed their George Floyd, so they spun some story of an Indigenous man being arrested by RCMP who enjoined them to engage in fisticuffs with him before he was arrested, but somehow that's racist to arrest him. And here's Josh Alexander, and he's tweeting out, the Canadian Armed Forces just deleted their post after receiving scrutiny from both myself and real Matt A. Who is that? Is that Matt Horwood? 1 second. I don't know. No. Luckily, I still have the photo. What do y'all think? Why do y'all think there are handprints on both of these girls' breasts? Yeah, this is the calf engaged in some kind of, I don't know, fun day or adventure training or something like that. They're running some kind of a relay, and you can see the females running up front here, holding hands with this male here. They have these handprints on their breasts. Yeah, that's the state of affairs in Canada's military right now. And the question being asked here by Josh is, why do y'all think there are handprints on both girls' breasts? And my answer was, it's not frat if it's girl on girl. Yeah, that's probably what's going on there. Girl on girl action is not fraternization that is allowed. Okay, and here is another tweet from us, Veterans for Freedom. Says, sent to us from CFB Trenton. This is a picture of a men's washroom. Think maybe the troops are tired of being humiliated by woke nonsense. Yeah, probably. And what's happening in this photo here is that somebody at CFB Trenton tore the tampon machine off the wall of the men's bathroom. So I think there are still plenty of good people left in the ranks who have had enough of this stuff. We need some good people in those ranks right now. We can't just leave the military to be run by the wokesters. That is a recipe for genocide. Okay, and here is End Wokeness. John Hopkins just sent out this hit list of people automatically guilty of quote-unquote privilege, whether they know it or not. Males, whites, Christians, middle-aged people, able-bodied people, middle and owning class, English-speaking people. This message was emailed directly to employees from the DEI office. And here is the graphic he's tweeting out. Chief Diversity Officer's Corner. Happy New Year. Welcome to January 2024 issue of the Monthly Diversity Digest. Okay, I'm not even going to read all that, but let's get a look at this list here. Diversity word of the month. Privilege is a set of unearned benefits given to people who are in a specific social group. Privilege operates on personal, interpersonal, cultural, and institutional levels, and it provides advantages and favors to members of dominant groups at the expense of members of other groups. And that is a Marxist viewpoint, okay? It is not the case necessarily that a successful group got that way by exploiting a less successful group, but that is the narrative across the board. It's a Marxist lens over everything. And that's what Marx did, is they were like, oh, hey, look at those working class with less money than the bourgeoisie. So the bourgeoisie is exploiting the working class. But the fact of the matter is, if you just roll the clock back a little bit, before there were workers of the world, there were, there were famines and so on and so forth. So it's better to be working class than poor. And those are the options. Like that's how the real world works. In the United States, privilege is granted to people who have membership in one or more of these social identity groups: white people, able-bodied people, heterosexuals, cisgender people, males, Christians, middle or owning class people, middle-aged people, English-speaking people. And these are all kind of traditional Western phenomena. And that is the psyop that we're living through right now. It's an anti-Western psyop. So that's why they go after Christianity. And of course, anything masculine. They don't want any kind of positive masculine roles out there, because that is a source of strength for our society, and they're trying everything they can to make us as weak as possible. Privilege is characteristically invisible to people who have it, right? So we're not allowed to criticize it. People in dominant groups often believe they have earned the privilege that privileges they enjoy, or that everyone could have access to these privileges if only they worked to earn them. In fact, privileges are unearned and are granted to people in dominant groups, whether they want those privileges or not, regardless of their stated intent. And of course, none of this has ever really been proven or supported in any way. All they do is a superficial analysis. They say this group has more, that group has less. Therefore, this group that has more is exploiting that group that has less. Is the whole Marxist pseudo-philosophy. Okay, here's End Wokeness. 6 months ago, Massachusetts began to ask residents to host illegals in their homes and properties. Soon, it will be mandatory. Yeah.
Most importantly, if you have an extra room or suite in your home, please consider hosting a family. Safe housing and shelter is our most pressing need. Become a sponsor family. You can contact the Brazilian Worker Center for more information on how you can step up if you're willing to have an additional family be part of your family. If you're a local...
Step up. I love that, how we're all just not stepping up. I guess, you know, it's funny how they attack masculinity and use language like step up. Like, it's almost like saying man up, right? Well, it would apply to both genders, obviously, but yeah, you're sort of character deficient because you're not stepping up if you don't want to house strangers with your children.
Official, a college president, a business owner, or a faith leader with an available building or space in your community, please work with us to offer it as a shelter site. If you're a social service provider, please consider becoming an emergency assistance homeless shelter provider. Our resources are stretched thin there as well. And if you're a hotel or a motel owner, consider opening it up for emergency assistance. If you're a landlord or a property owner, we can use you too. We can connect you with service providers to help transition
They can use you.
families into permanent housing. Everyone has something they can offer. Most importantly,
No. How about no? At what point is it okay for people to say no? I think probably now, at the point where they're saying you should take strangers into and house them with your children. That is clearly a recipe for disaster. And Mother of the Drummer says, okay, I'm really late. 10-figure push-ups. Hi, Jeff in chat. Just give it as the wave and the triple slashy. Right back at you. Okay, 10-figure push-ups. You got it. You know the drill. So well done. Way to own it. I do appreciate that. And Dale is saying, nope, no extra room. And Robin is saying, how about them leading by example? Yeah, this was something, you know, what's her name there from Harry Potter? I don't care about Harry Potter, but I love J.K. Rowling. That's what it is. Okay, J.K. Rowling. She has kind of become a symbol of anti-woke as of late, but previously during the migrant crisis, in the wake of the migrant crisis of 2015, she was the one saying, you know, bring them all here, and getting called out for you first. Like, you have all these mansions, you have plenty of extra room. Are you going to house them? Who's going to house them? Well, no, it's the rest of us who have to house them. So it would be great to see somebody lead by example, but that is not something that we observe nowadays. Okay, let's move on. We got Elon Musk tweeting this out, and let me just back this up a second. Check this guy out.
Politically, having over 500 people in our community would completely wipe out any interest we have. Are you aware that there are immigrant advocates at state houses all over this country who are advocating for non-citizen voting in local elections? What if...
And I'm showing you this because the Black community in the United States have been kind of like the pet project of the Democrats, the left, for the longest time, where Joe Biden even went as far as to say, if you don't vote for me, you ain't Black. So it's, I think, a real sign of hope to see the Black community kind of coming together and pushing back against this kind of stuff. They're waking up to the scam, the psyop that's being run on them. So, and you know, bringing in these populations unvetted from problematic regions of the world is only going to make these vulnerable populations even more at risk.
That happened here. That would change the mindset of what we as a Black community need to thrive.
Yes, it's going to change our culture. It's going to change everything. It's going to, the demographics is destiny, right? The left understands that, but the rest of us we're slow to catch up, I think. And Darlene is saying most immigrants entering Canada are male. Yeah, it's the same thing at the southern border in the United States. It's all fighting age males. So hybrid warfare is coming 2024. I'm calling it right now. That's China's going to make a move on Taiwan, and we're going to be too busy trying to fight off all the bad guys that they imported in droves. I'm not. I think that China is probably behind a lot of the financing and so on and so forth, and the psyop that makes uses all this guilt and shame. It's Maoist, right? Shame the outsiders, praise the insiders, and shame on you for not wanting to bring these hordes of fighting age males from problematic countries into your borders. That's racist.
Here in Chicago, that's a concern of ours. This is much bigger than the mayor of Chicago or Chicago Police Department. This is an effort to destroy our neighborhoods and silence our voices even further.
There you go. It's going to dilute their culture. It's going to put them at risk. So it's really good to see these people standing up against this stuff. And Debbie is saying, good morning from Tabor, Alberta. Special appreciation to the Westerners for being with us so early. Yes, I will do the push-ups. You guys are great. You guys are really, you're hip to the drill now. So it's pretty awesome. And Gary is saying they're getting $30 an hour for the pro-Palestine rallies. I would like to see a source on that, some kind of confirmation. I don't doubt it, not for a second. They probably are getting paid. So that's been a phenomenon that's been around for years as well. Andrew Breitbart back in the day did a really good job of exposing that. So, and here's Elon Musk again, and he says this is what happens when you run out of hotel rooms. Soon cities will run out of schools to vacate. They will come for your homes. And he's retweeting libs of TikTok here who are saying, breaking, buses are now pulling up to this place and dropping off illegals. School is closed tomorrow because illegals will be sleeping in the school's gym. This is disgraceful. New York City is prioritizing illegals over Americans. Get out of the cities, everybody. Just get out of the cities. And here you can see it's a school bus. Illegal migrants getting off, and what they've done. Look at this. Holy smokes. Just a lineup of school buses. Yeah, so there they are going into the school, and that's probably good for that clip. But my understanding is that school's been closed, and they're expecting the students to do virtual learning now, so they can repurpose the schools as migrant shelters. So they're prioritizing foreign nationals over the people who were born here, pay taxes here, pay for these services, and they're not being delivered. So pretty disgraceful. And William is pointing out that they're well dressed and well fed. That's something we've been seeing for a long time too. I remember when there was and it was like this designer baby stroller that's like $1,200 or something like that. So just incredible. It's a big scam. It's all a big scam. Okay, and here is Never Again Live Politics, and they're saying Hamas supporters have smashed the windows of a car and slashed the tires belonging to a Jewish family in the Steeles and Dufferin area just north of Toronto. The car has an Israeli flag. This is a terrorist attack. What's next? Yeah, pretty much. So here it is. Yeah, they're smashing the windows. It's kind of grainy, but it looks like that guy might be wearing one of the keffiyehs. So this is what they mean when they say globalize the Antifada. Well, I hope they got a plate on that guy. Yeah, this has nothing to do with Palestine, folks, not whatsoever. And I believe that's what they mean when they say globalize the Antifada. They mean globalize the Jew hunting. Okay, here is Ezra Levant. And so we're bringing in all these migrants. And I reported on this here last night where they were talking about, they were initially talking about bringing about 1,000 refugees from Gaza to Canada, which is not really a refugee. Refugees are people who kind of stay somewhere in the region that is war-torn, but out of the way of the fighting, somewhere in a safe location. That's how we used to handle refugee crises. But now, they're just regular migrants. They're just immigrants. There's no difference. What was the one a while back? Syria was the one in 2015, and everybody was calling them refugees. And I'm like, what do you mean? They're not refugees. We're not settling them in somewhere like Turkey. We're actually taking people from Turkey who are already in a safe location from their apartments in Turkey, and we're bringing them here. And we don't even have any kind of like treaties with Syria that would allow us to send them back to Syria. So they're just going to live here. Like, they're immigrants now. And here is Ezra Levant, and he's retweeting the IRCC. IRCC is saying, today we announced the opening of a new temporary resident pathway for extended family members in Gaza of Canadian citizens and permanent residents. This measure provides a temporary safe haven for Palestinians directly affected by the crisis in Gaza who have Canadian citizen or permanent resident family members in Canada willing to support them. Once in Canada, eligible people can apply for a free exempt study permit or open work permit under the measures already announced. This will enable them to better support themselves in Canada while the crisis in Israel and the Palestinian territories continues. Canada continues to work with partners in the region to facilitate the exit of Canadian citizens, permanent residents, and eligible family members, including extended family members eligible under the new pathway. So again, this is clearly they're bringing them here to work and study. They're not refugees, they're immigrants. And Ezra is saying, who controls southern Gaza? Hamas does. Who controls who can leave? Hamas does. Who chooses who will come to Canada? Hamas does. So that's what we're doing, is we're importing hordes of potentially legit Hamas members, as well as people who may be very supportive of them and hold attitudes like, let's go around smashing Jewish property up and intimidating Jews, like we saw in the previous clip here. So that's where we're headed with this. Whatever weakens the West is true. Hybrid warfare coming in 2024 as China makes its move on Taiwan. And just a little look here at the general population over there in Gaza. And DZ is tweeting out, these are animals themselves, heartless, barbaric terrorists. How long until we see this in the streets of Canada? Yeah, that's what I'm asking as well. And she's tweeting out this two-panel graphic here. Palestine Muslim painted this poor innocent donkey, then beaten and sewn to death before being set on fire. So here's a child leading a donkey. It's a white donkey that they have painted blue, the blue stripes and Star of David of the Israeli flag. And they dragged this donkey along and then stoned and beat it to death and set it on fire. So yeah, these are, and look at all the people supporting this and waving the flags as well. So that is what we're importing to Canada right now. I don't see that heading anywhere good for the people who are living here now. Okay, importing hate, says Gary over on X. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. They're going to import a bunch of people who hate us. And what's going on in Gaza is here is Avivi Klampa, and they're saying peace isn't possible until Palestinian society stops indoctrinating their children to become martyrs who slaughter Jews. And I've been reporting on this here as well. This is what Hamas has been up to ever since Israel withdrew in 2005 and left them to govern their society. They've been radicalizing kids. Like, these are like 5 and 6 year olds here. Look at this. So if you're just listening, like these are girls predominantly in this shot. I think this might be a boy here, but they're wearing combat fatigues. They have these toy rifles strapped around them. They're doing a little dance and waving the Palestinian flag. So they indoctrinate them from the time that they're born to hate Jews and be prepared to commit violent acts against them. So that is the problem. I mean, it's a problematic society. It's going to take a lot of time to reform it. I think probably one full saeculum. That's the measure that I propose anyway. 4 generations to make them a liberal democracy, essentially. They're not anywhere near there yet. They're very problematic and violent, and those are the problems that we're going to be importing here to Canada if we keep this up. Okay, and here is a graphic that somebody sent me here. It says Muslims from Europe in 2050, high immigration scenario, projected percentage of Muslims among total population in each country. And we can see like they have all of Western Europe being shown here. And so the projections are, these are in the millions, and it's, oh, wait a second, percentage of the population. So Sweden would be 30.6% by 2050 Muslim. And, if you're not tracking what's been happening in Sweden, especially since the 2015 migrant crisis, like they have no-go zones all over the place in Sweden where emergency services won't even enter because they've formed these enclaves where they have grenade problems and all kinds of gang activity and so on and so forth. And it also became the rape capital of the world. Sweden, which Julian Assange also referred to as the Saudi Arabia of feminism, is also the rape capital of the world since the migrant crisis or thereabouts. And UK is projected to be 17.2%. We see there's all kinds of problems in the UK right now. We've been showing some of that here on the program as well. Belgium, 18.2%. I don't see a whole lot coming out of Belgium, but it's a very small country. France, 18.0%. Now, there were all the France riots there not too long ago. They shut down the internet. What the heck is going on in France right now? I see very, very little coming out of France these days. But that is the agenda, right? It's this destabilization agenda, where they import all kinds of violent people, and the state will just kind of implode on its own, and it'll be too weak to respond to any kind of an external threat, like say China, for example. And here's Germany at 19.7%. Now Germany is rising up. I think they've kind of had enough of this. And let me see, the Netherlands is only at about 15.2%, which is lower than these other ones. Only about half of what Sweden is, and the Netherlands are pushing back. They elected Geert Wilders there, and he's on a platform of deporting a lot of these problematic people and closing up the borders and saying, Netherlands, we need a little time to focus on the Netherlands, which is, I think, where Canada should go as well. We got enough of our own problems right now. Let's try to help these people in the places where they are, sure, but not at the expense of bankrupting our own country and resigning our own children to serfdom. Okay, and where is all that going? So all of this destabilization, all of these different factors, Well, here is Wide Awake Media, and they're saying, quote unquote, there will be control. President of the European Central Bank, Christine Lagarde, admits the EU's new CBDC, central bank digital currency, the digital euro, will be used to impose control. EU citizens have already faced imprisonment or fines for engaging in cash transactions above 1,000 euros. But the introduction of the digital euro will facilitate financial totalitarianism on a scale that would make even George Orwell wince. No kidding. So let's listen to Boomer Female here. Check this out.
You're introducing the electronic euro, as I know.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
How can switching to an electronic currency help?
Now we have in Europe this threshold above 1,000 euros. You cannot pay cash. If you do, you are on the gray market. So you take your risk. You get caught, you are fined, or you go in jail. But you know, the digital euro is,
if you spend 1,000 euros cash, you go to jail.
Going to have a limited amount of control. There will be control. You're right. You're completely right. We are considering whether for very small amounts, you know, anything that is around 300, 400 euros, we could have a mechanism where there is zero control. But that could be dangerous. The terrorist attacks on France back 10 years ago were entirely financed by those very small anonymous credit cards that you can recharge in total anonymity.
Yeah, so what she's saying is true. Is she referring to the Nice attacks, perhaps? I'm not sure. But, well, there are all kinds of terrorist attacks. So pick one in France. So they import terrorists. Terrorists commit these acts, and then they say, now we need to impose this security state, this police state, in order for your protection, comrade. It's for your safety, comrade. That seems to be the direction that they're heading in. That's the agenda right there. Okay. And that's the real reason we're importing all these people into Canada, is so they can impose the security state on us, this police state. Not that we're not already in a police state, but an even worse police state. Here is James Melville, and he's saying 2019, quote, China bans 23 million from buying travel tickets as part of social credit system, close quote. There are those who think that a social credit system will never happen in Western societies. It did. Vaccine passports were a version of social credit system. Yeah, that is the road that we're going down now. People have been calling this out, like Paul Joseph Watson, since China first started doing the social credit thing. And so 23 million over there in China. They can't even travel because the government says they're not good enough people. And really, of course, it all has everything to do with loyalty to the regime. Nothing really beyond that. Well, there's jaywalking and stuff like that too, but it's just an odious freaking regime. At least you can leave China, but then they come here and they end up getting leveraged as assets for the CCP. If they're not, you know, CCP affiliated like West or United Front to begin with. So yeah, that is the agenda that is being imported into the West. And as we know, the current regime is actually run by China, because we've seen all of these different people that have been captured. Essentially, our elites have been captured by China, especially Trudeau. But across the board, there are all kinds of, you know, Han Dong and different politicians who've been captured, as well as David Johnson, you know, who was supposed to be the special rapporteur. And I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if this new judge that they've selected to head up the so-called inquiry into Chinese interference is probably captured as well. She has ties to that legal firm that got the non-disclosure agreement with the little girl in Trudeau's last school where he worked. So and the Trudeau Foundation is just lousy with these communists and people who have been unduly influenced by the Chinese regime. So that seems to be the direction that we're going in. But here is a shot of the German farmers are preparing the largest protest in history against their government. The media doesn't want you to see this. Yeah, no kidding. But check it out. This is absolutely massive. And the Netherlands and Poland have joined with them as well. So it seems like the Europeans are really rising up. absolutely massive farmers' protests as Canadian farms are shutting down due to the carbon tax. So, you know, what do you think, farmers? Convoy 2.0, anybody in? I'd love to see it, although I wouldn't be able to see it firsthand because I'm not allowed in Ottawa anymore because I participated in the convoy in Rolling Thunder. Okay, this is a pretty good video here that I found on Facebook. UN closed temporarily due to lack of funds. So this is this page here. What is it? Tanya Truthseeker. She's pretty good. I mean, a little on the conspiratorial side for my taste, but she does some really good stuff.
So, guess who's broke and shutting their doors temporarily? The UN. That is correct. Let me just show you the article from Brussels Times. The UN temporarily closes Geneva headquarters due to lack of funds. Aw, poor UN. I know, aren't we all just so sad? I mean, my heart is breaking for those Epstein-type bureaucrats who basically, you know, traffic children in Yugoslavia and women. And there was a whistleblower who came through, and then they changed their charges for human trafficking and lessened it to just violations, you know, because you can't have the truth come out with the UN. But the funny part is the UN is actually out of funds because it costs too much money to run the electricity in their buildings. So their own policies are basically shutting their own doors, kind of like the entire liberal agenda that's kind of falling apart at the seams, don't you guys think? But it gets even better for the UN because Doug Porter of Canada decided to make a petition for Canada to pull out of the UN. Leslie Lewis, who's a conservative member in the federal level government, decided to sponsor that petition. Now it's still going and it will be going, and I will have all of the links so you can sign the petition as well. And I know you guys are saying we're not making any difference, like everything is moving slow, but let me just show you this year's Davos meeting and what they want to achieve. So Klaus Schwab's little World Economic Forum annual meeting this year will be about rebuilding trust. Yeah. Oh, Schwabi, are you
Imagine that. People don't trust the WEF.
realizing that we don't trust you, that we
Yeah, he's just realizing that. He can't believe that anybody might not trust him. It just speaks to the hubris of the elites.
don't trust your little global leaders such as Justin Trudeau? Yeah, there will be no trust to rebuild because we will never trust snakes and rats and parasites like yourself. And after we're done pretty much taking the UN down, we will come after the World Economic Forum because I do not feel like paying my Canadian pension plan into the World Economic Forum, which is, by the way, where our CPP is going. So to my American friends, there are a bunch of petitions as well for the United States to pull out of the United Nations. Australia has already started something. New Zealand is about to follow suit. And a bunch of other countries in Europe want to do the same. So for everybody saying that we are not making enough progress, we are. It is just a really giant ship, and it takes some time to turn around a big ship like this. But we will do it, and we will achieve and succeed in our plans. Why? Because we are so sick and tired of these globalists not only telling us how to live, but what to put in our bodies. And the WHO has planned another extra 500 inoculations in the next near future for people to get in order to be fully healthy and immunized. But we've all seen how that went the last 2 years. So I said I was going to make good news, and this is definitely good news. So let me know what you guys think, and I will put the Canadian petition in all of my comment sections, and I will let also the Americans know where they can find their petitions.
There you go. Definitely a good sign. The UN is bankrupting itself because, I mean, where do they get their money? They get their money from us, and they're bankrupting us. So what do you expect, guys? I mean, just a kind of obliviousness, I think, to how the whole economic system works. Well done by Tanya there. I do appreciate her style as well. She's sarcastic, so you know, I like that stuff. All right, so here is Rebel News, and the title is House Republicans Uncover Lack of Supervision in NAID Research Funding. Question, ex-director Fauci. Fauci's testimony today uncovered drastic and systemic failures in America's public health systems. While leading the nation's COVID-19 response and influencing public narratives, he simultaneously had no idea what was happening under his own jurisdiction at NAID, Select Subcommittee, and Coronavirus Pandemic Chairman Brad Wenstrup said. House Republicans disclosed a lack of oversight in the supervision. Speaking of trust, the House Republicans disclosed a lack of oversight in the supervision of research funded by the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases during the initial day of a two-day session interviewing the agency's ex-director, Anthony Fauci. Quote, Dr. Fauci's testimony today uncovered drastic and systemic failures in America's public health systems. While leading the nation's COVID-19 response and influencing public narratives, he simultaneously had no idea what was happening under his own jurisdiction at NAID. Close quote, Select Subcommittee of the Coronavirus Pandemic Chairman Brad Wenstrup said. Fauci, having headed the biggest division of the National Institute of Health for more than 35 years, serves as a crucial witness for the Republicans in their inquiry into the origins of SARS-CoV-2, the virus responsible for COVID-19, the Washington Examiner reports. In August, the Republican members of the subcommittee released a report indicating that Fauci played a key role in the creation and release of a scientific article in Nature Medicine. This paper allegedly refuted the theory that the virus emerged from the Wuhan Institute of Virology, a facility that received indirect NIH funding via the private research organization EcoHealth Alliance. Wenstrup stated that during his testimony on Monday, Fauci confirmed he approved all foreign and domestic research grants during his time at the NIH without individually examining the proposals. Furthermore, Wenstrup noted that Fauci was unable to detail any methods that would enable the NIH to oversee foreign labs receiving funding from the United States. Quote, clearly the American people and the United States government are operating with completely different expectations about the responsibilities of our public health leaders and the accountability of our public health agencies, close quote, Wenstrup said. Raul Ruiz, the leading Democrat on the committee, strongly criticized the GOP's efforts to interrogate Fauci, labeling it as a political mover. This guy isn't even supposed to be a political actor, for crying out loud. He's a bureaucrat. Nobody should even know his name. Regarding Monday's interview, Ruiz stated that it demonstrates the absence of any concealment regarding the origins of COVID-19 or the suppression of the lab leak theory by Fauci. Ruiz mentioned that the Democrats on the subcommittee are concentrating on evaluating quote-unquote lessons learned from the current situation with the aim of applying these insights to handle future epidemics and pandemics. Quote, regardless of this origin, close quote. Well, if you're going to take lessons learned, you need to interrogate the events that transpired. Like, how the hell are you supposed to learn anything if you're not allowed to ask questions there, Ruiz? But, you know, he's in the cult, right? He's in the tribe, and Fauci is part of the tribe. He's a sage in the tribe. He's like the high priest of the left throughout the course of the pandemic. So it's no surprise that he's accusing the Republicans of blasphemy. Ruiz was absent on Monday, but plans to be present at Tuesday's session. Representatives Zebby Dingell and Kathy Castor were the minorities representatives on Monday. The Republican members of the subcommittee reported that Fauci stated he, quote, did not recall, close quote, more than 100 details related to the COVID-19 pandemic raised by the majority. Wenstrup expressed concern over the fact that Fauci, who was the forefront figure in the country's response to the most severe public health crisis, quote, does not recall, close quote, crucial information about the origins of COVID-19 and policies during the pandemic. The chairman stated in his plans to persist with the second day of questioning, aiming to delve deeper into Fauci's perspectives on masking and lockdown strategies, as well as vaccine mandates. Quote, nearly 1.2 million Americans lost their lives to a potentially preventable pandemic, close quote, Wenstrup said. Quote, Tuesday's testimony will continue the select subcommittee's efforts to deliver the answers Americans demand and deserve, close quote. Yeah, well done. This guy, Wenstrup. The preventable pandemic, I think, is key there. That's a really good bottom line to throw in there. There was never any need for any of this stuff. It just wasn't that dangerous. And prior to, what was it, December 2021, that was when the WHO actually changed the definition of pandemic. Prior to that, there were two criteria that needed to be met. One was there was a novel pathogen on the scene, and two was All-cause mortality 15% in excess of a normal year. They removed that second criterion. So no matter how many people died, as long as they could find a new virus somewhere, that's considered to be a pandemic now as of December 2021. So we didn't really have a pandemic in 2020. We had one in 2021 under the new definition, which is Orwellian, obviously. And here is Kevin Bass, PhD, MS. What is MS? Master of Science? Because it's usually MSc. But anyway, March 29, 2021, Rochelle Walensky, CDC director, declared on MSNBC, quote, vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick, close quote. FOIA emails from January 30th, 2021 show Walensky knew this was a lie. Why don't misinformation warriors care about misinformation spread by the CDC? And this is one of two in a tweet thread. So here's a 14-second clip of Rochelle Walensky.
Our data from the CDC today suggests, that vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick, and that it's not just in the clinical trials, but it's also in real-world data.
What clinical trials? So that is one of two. And here is the 2 of 2. He didn't label it, but see for yourself. Without these lies, unconstitutional vaccine mandates would not have been possible. That's why she lied. She and her colleagues need to be held accountable for these lies. We will keep talking about it until they are. And here is the FOIA request document. And it says, Dear all, I had a call with Francis Collins this morning, and one of the issues we discussed was that of the vaccine breakthroughs. This is clearly an important area of study and was specifically called out this week. Link to an article, it looks like. And Nancy and I discussed this briefly a few weeks ago, and I understand that redacted. Lots of redactions in there. Should we discuss what is the best next step forward? Francis is also discussing with Tony. So it's Francis Collins and Tony Fauci. Like you see how they're all just pals and they're all looking out for each other's interest. So breakthroughs, that's what they're talking about. The breakthroughs with the vaccine, those are breakthrough infections, right? That's what they call them. But of course, later in the pandemic, we saw studies that actually showed negative efficacy of the vaccine, where efficacy actually drops, as in you're more vulnerable to infection if you are vaccinated than if not. So here is Miriam Heinen and Henian on Twitter, and they say retweet. Hashtag stop the shots. Meet Janet Woodstock, the lady eugenicist who approved the Pfizer quaxine, brackets bioweapon, despite an overwhelming amount of adverse reactions and deaths. She also approved OxyContin for as low as age 11, as well as fentanyl. Yeah, so just goes to show you. We have the eugenicists running a pandemic response. It's not surprising at this point for me to be saying that, but this is definitely uncharted waters that we find ourselves in now. And here's the next one on the tweet thread. Her record has shown she does not stand for the health of people, but for her health, as in HE double hockey sticks health. Soon this bioweapon will be on the children's schedule, and it will be near impossible to get it off. Yeah, no kidding. We need something like a Nuremberg 2 to really stand up to all this stuff. And there's some more information there. Operation Warp Speed. Like here is this looks like the what do you call it? Org chart for Operation Warp Speed and all that stuff. So anyway, yeah, it's going to be a heck of a jurisprudential reckoning sometime in the next few years. I think we just need to be patient. But drip, 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 the cracks have been forming in this dam for quite a while. 2024 could be the year that dam finally breaks. But things are going to get worse before they get better. So I hope everybody's prepared to that. It's going to be a bumpy ride this year with the November election taking place down in the United States. And, Xi Jinping has already come out and said that reunification, which is his word for invasion of Taiwan, is inevitable. They've been exercising that invasion for years now, and I think this is probably going to be the year they're going to make their move before the election. And don't be the least bit surprised if we get hit with a massive cyber attack and all kinds of hybrid warfare, CCP and United Front assets activated and drive all that division pit all the different ethnicities off one another, with all these different terrorist groups that they've been importing forever. Now, Janet Woodstock, I found this interesting, so I wanted to go look her up a little bit. I just wanted to make sure that this was somebody, that was central to all of this. And it doesn't really give you anything in the summarizer, but here is the FDA website. This is the link to the FDA website. And it says Janet Woodstock is the director of the CDC, director of the Center for Drug Evaluation and Research at the Food and Drug Administration. The center makes sure that safe and effective drugs are available to improve the health of people in the United States. But when you go and you click on the link, page not found. Yikes. What's going on there? It's been memory hold. Oh, I got the same one up here, but oh yeah, what I did. So there it is. That's the U.S. Food and Drug Administration website. Her page has been memory hold. And if you go to the Wayback Machine, I looked for it, like multiple examples everywhere. I can't find it anywhere, even in the Wayback Machine. So this is the game of cat and mouse. I think they're adapting to some of these technologies that have even just recently come on the scene in the last few years. So it seems like they're hip to this whole Wayback Machine thing now. So here's Ian Miller. Apparently, the St. Louis Public Health Director rescinded her unilateral mask mandate for the city's employees after less than 24 hours because hospital officials denied they were, quote unquote, overwhelmed. Maybe it was also because masks never made a difference in St. Louis anyway. And he's retweeting this one here. This is a tweet thread that Rule 303 put together, and it says, mini thread on an insane drama unfolding in St. Louis. Heard this from a pal who teaches at Washington U, one of 10. Yesterday, out of the blue, the health director, smiling below, staged a public policy push by imposing a mask mandate on the city. Evidently, she didn't do this without consulting, maybe without even warning her mayor, the regional heads of hospital, local presbyters and big shots, etc. This was so irregular at first, people thought the order might be a prank. Turns out it was real. Her reason for using the mandate was to reduce strain on the hospital system, which she said was floundering under the surge of respiratory illness. Interestingly, she did not justify masking as a response to COVID only, but to flu and RSV, citing case increases of 50% and 150% above the 5-year average. Naturally, this freaked people out even more because linking mask mandates to bugs and other COVID implied they might never go away. The peasants would have revolted, but they didn't get a chance. The nobles beat them to it. People with titles complained in chorus. Could the director of the health department and infectious disease physician really make a mistake this big and dumb? Why? That'd be like finding out the president of Harvard is an imposter. The hospital has made a statement, quote, "We are not overwhelmed. So far, this is a normal winter," close quote. Well done, hospitals. This made it obvious she hadn't bothered to talk to them, but had simply used the, quote, "shortages of ICU beds," close quote, copy paste from 3 years ago. St. Louis docs must really like this gal because they helped her further into the ditch by pointing out a flaw some of you already noticed. Yeah, the shortage of ICU beds was something that they ran here in Canada as well. I mean, Ontario funded 1,400 new ICU beds and then fired all of its nurses. And then they reported available beds as available beds that were staffed. So they had the beds, the physical beds, but they didn't have staff to staff those beds. And so that's where that whole ICU overwhelmed narrative came from. Okay, can carry on here. In her analysis, the 5-year average includes an anomaly. Winter 2020 to 2021, lowest for flu in the modern history of records. Every normal year will be above the 5-year average until it excretes this anomaly. Now this mistake could have been easily avoided just by, okay, so what he means here is because there was no flu, of course there was flu, but because there was no flu reported in 2020 to 2021, so that zero is going to be counted as part of the 5-year average. So every year where there's flu, basically, is going to be above the 5-year average until 5 years down the road, it's no longer counted. That 0 is no longer counted in the average. That's what he means by 5-year average until it excretes that anomaly. So taking to a few members of the profession, she makes a policy for, but incompetent people don't like talking to competent ones. It's not fun for them because it feels like being told you're wrong all the time. Feels like not being in charge. They learn to avoid the experience. Today, the mask mandate was rescinded, lived less than 24 hours. To save face, they let her issue a quote-unquote update that, quote, strongly recommends, close quote, masking. I mean, you can't have your health director losing her self-confidence in the midst of a crisis she imagined. Read more via 9 of 10, this link, and he's linking to an article here of what happened there in St. Louis. So they really want that pandemic back, these people. They just got drunk on the power from the pandemic days. And Ian Miller is retweeting this, and he's the guy that I'm checking out here. And he has this graphic, COVID death rate per 100K, St. Louis County. And as we can see, like here are the death rates, huge spikes here and here. They have these huge spikes. This is April to May of 2020. So right after pandemic was declared, you got that huge spike there. And then we have another one right around mid-January of mid-November of 20. See, I don't like this when they list the month in the wrong direction. It should be, because I got month, day, year. When you're using digits, it should always be most significant bit to least significant bit. So, but anyway, here we have right around December of 2020, another big spike, and right around February of 22, there's another big spike. And so right after the first spike here, around May timeframe of 2020, they imposed the mask mandate here. It looks like July of 2020. And that mask mandate carries forward all the way to April of 22. And there are the biggest spikes. The most massive spike is right here. And this spike is more or less equal to the initial spike right here between the mask mandate being imposed and it being lifted. And after it gets lifted, no more spikes. So what's going on there, huh? Yeah, masks really work, though. Oh, God. Okay, and this is a good little clip from Tucker. He's been doing a lot of great work over there on X. And Coronavirus Plushie is tweeting out 17 million deaths from the COVID vaccine. That's like the death toll of a global war. Yes, absolutely. This is a great tragedy of history. It's of that proportion. Yep, that's pretty apt. But here he is with Brett Weinstein discussing the whole thing. And I think I saw the original source somewhere. I don't have it lined up here for what Weinstein is saying, but here we go.
So just first part of the question, what do you think we're going to see in terms of a death toll and injury toll from this vaccine? So-called.
Let's say here's what we know. Joseph Freeman and his colleagues, including Peter Doshi, did an evaluation of Pfizer's own safety data.
Peter Doshi is the guy who was in charge of EcoHealth Alliance that got all those grants from Fauci to run the coronavirus, gain of function research over in the Wuhan lab. So
from its safety trials. And these trials were absurdly short. In fact, Pfizer only allowed 1 month before it vaccinated its controls and made it impossible to detect further harms. And what they found was a 1 in 800 rate of serious adverse event. This is not minor stuff. This is serious harm to health. 1 in 800 per shot. That's not per person. That's per shot. 1 in 800 rate, which in 1 month, that suggests a very high mortality risk. And in fact, we saw mortality in the safety trials. What happens over the long term? We've certainly seen such a range of pathologies that have crippling effects on people's health that I shudder to think how many people have actually.
So I'm not a math genius, but 1 in 800 shots times billions is, a lot of people.
Yep. There was I was recently at a conference in Romania on the COVID crisis. And so there was a lot of work trying to unpack what we actually understand. And I saw a credible estimate of something like 17 million deaths globally from this technology. So
17 million deaths from the COVID vax?
Well, when you scale up to billions, it's not hard to reach a number like that with a technology this dangerous. Now, to your deeper question,
I don't know if he's saying if everybody in the world took it, then that's what you would get. But, if it is, then it might be a little high. Not far off, though.
I think let's steel man.
So just for perspective, I mean, that's like the death toll of a global war.
Yes, absolutely. This is a great tragedy of history. So that proportion.
Yep, that it is. And Darlene was just saying, watch Tucker Carlson's expressions. That's kind of what he's known for, right? He's just the faces that he makes while he's listening. It's quite entertaining. And oh yeah, here is the update. So as I mentioned, well, I'll just go and let the video speak for itself here. And Mother of the Drummers on YouTube is saying, House Father admitted in committee, but no one seemed to pick up on it. Then it confirmed what we all knew all along. Yeah, I showed it here, and I have that clip saved for sure. Anthony Housefather said, "Yeah, we provided we indemnified all of the vaccine companies. Like there's no accountability. There's never going to be any ability to sue them because and they didn't go through the regular trials." Because people really wanted the vaccine and blah, blah, blah. So no, they didn't go through the trials and you can't sue them based on the government contracts. He did say that in committee. So that is an important clip. Okay, let's get a look at what this is here. So this is, as you can see by these idiot squiggles, is a Chinese like a YouTube channel here that I try to follow this stuff quite a bit. There are lots of people in the Chinese diaspora who are obviously oppositional to the Chinese Communist Party, and they're showing a lot of courage in this crisis. So let's hear what they have to say.
Anna Mu is a member of the new federal state of China. She's joining me now. Anna, good to have you here on the program.
Hi, Steve. Nice to meet you.
Nice to see you. All right, so let's talk about Taiwan 2024. Brand new aircraft carriers and military equipment being announced by the Chinese and basically shown to the world. What do you think is going to happen with dictator Xi and the CCP in Taiwan in 2024?
Well, thank you very much for bringing this up. Well, we know from the exclusive intelligence with the new federal state of China, alongside the coast of Fujian and the northeast of Taiwan, well, we have the CCP and the Xi's army. We know that they might take actions in the next 2 weeks. So, Taiwan is a key to Xi's regime, and he would use Taiwan as a strong fist to show his power, and not only to stand towards the people in the CCP system, but also as a part of his propaganda to present his influence. And she doesn't care if he will win or lose in the end, but he will just launch the war either way to show that he still has the power to attack or to have a war. So no matter how...
That's actually a more optimistic view than I have been taking. She's not really convinced that he has the power to conquer Taiwan. He has the ability, but that he'll do it anyway, just to kind of, chest beat like the ape that he is. And so if they don't get it, then that's positive, more positive than the perspective that I've been taking, that if they do get it, then, Taiwan, that's where 80% of the semiconductors are manufactured, globally. And also the Strait of Taiwan carries 80% of the cargo shipping. So that's the jugular vein of the world's economy. And if they get a hold of that, if the Chinese get a hold of that, then they'll just dominate us economically and we'll all be taking orders from them. So she seems to be taking the perspective, though, that he doesn't really have the capacity. The Chinese military is not going to be able to pull it off. And I hope she's right.
How many people's lives are lost in the end? They do not care about the loss of lives, and they only care about the power of the regime. So we know from December...
Sounds a lot like our own regime.
31st of last year, an intelligence from within the CCP system have said that Xi Jinping has sent personnel to Taiwan to interfere with the upcoming presidential election. And it is said that he had already ordered his POA to be ready to attack Taiwan in the next 2 weeks. So the POA will likely to have operation alongside the seaside of Fujian, targeting the northeast of Taiwan. And this is what we know already.
Yeah. All right. Take down the CCP. That's what they're saying there in the theme song. So, yep, this is something you're going to want to watch in the next couple of weeks, I guess. I didn't think they'd go after it this early. I thought it would be maybe more like a couple of months from now as opposed to a couple of weeks from now. But I was just kind of thinking like worst case scenario type stuff, not because I'm black pilled, but there's a thing in Stoicism called a negative meditation, where it's basically just, you consider the worst to prepare for the worst. And then when the worst happens, you're ready for it, right? Like it's you don't get completely disheveled over the whole thing. But I was thinking it was going to be more like in the dead of winter, they'd hit us with a cyber attack and take down the power grids, and there'd be all kinds of people just kind of freezing, and we'd be scrambling to save all of our own lives and in no position to do anything to save anybody else. And then he would go after Taiwan militarily, and it'd all be conquered. And like I said, we'd be taking orders from them because they dominate the world economically, and we'd be back to the days of the Red Emperor of China, where all of the surrounding kingdoms, even though they had kings, they still had to pay homage to the Red Emperor. And when they traveled to China to meet with the Red Emperor, they had to do the kowtow. That's where the expression comes from, is they had to get down on their knees, prostrate themselves in front of the emperor, and touch their forehead to the ground 3 times. So I think that's kind of what Xi is after here, is he wants to be the new Red Emperor. But the good news is, I don't think he has a whole lot of, he's not well liked in China. He's been disappearing like senior officials who express any kind of concern over his agenda. There was the disappearance of that one oligarch there who was a billionaire hundreds of times over, and he was gone for months, and then he just reappeared, and everybody's like, where were you? And he's like, I can't tell you. But he's only about half as wealthy as he used to be. He was absolutely brutal to his own people, of course, during lockdowns, which was the model we all emulated. And we saw these uprisings in the streets where people, even wearing their masks, were coming out and openly saying, we don't want Chinese communism. We want Western democracy. We don't want Xi Jinping, this kind of thing. So I don't think he's well liked. There's not a whole lot of support there. I'm not entirely sure, how much support there is in the military, but he just had a whole, he fired all the top generals and put new people in there. So I think things are kind of falling apart at the seams for him at the same time. That all of this is happening. So, hope for the best. They do have the same kind of demographic crisis over there that all of the other prosperous countries are in as well, like an inverted population pyramid where there are too many boomers and not enough of the younger generations to support them in their old age. And in China, they had the one child policy. So Gen X over there had one child policy. And there are too many men and not enough women. And I think that perhaps there are a sufficient number of people oppositional to the regime at this point, because they've been so brutally oppressed, that they might not have, the support to go to war. And people who don't believe in their own society, that aren't really going to go to war for it. Like that's what they're trying to do to us in the West, is to make us give up on ourselves and stop believing in ourselves, so that we won't have the will to fight and the will to carry on. But over there, like, they actually have good reason not to be motivated to go to war on behalf of that regime. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye on it. People have been saying that China is a paper tiger for years and years. They're on the verge. They're on this economic cliff. They have to go for all this BRIC stuff, of course, just to keep it together. That is another threat that we want to watch out for. Of course, if they release a currency, then it could be absolutely devastating to the U.S. dollar, which would be devastating to us. The U.S. dollar has historically depended an awful lot on the alliance that they have with this kind of tepid alliance that they have with Saudi Arabia, to support it as the petrodollar, and they are going the way of BRICS. So that's going to be potentially devastating for the dollar. But you know what? We got enough oil and gas here in North America to make it work. We don't really need the Saudis anymore since fracking came on the scene. So, you could see a real strong revitalization of the United States and of North America more broadly. When people kind of wake up to, the situation that we're really in globally speaking. And so it'll probably have to get worse before it gets better in that regard. But, it's going to take, like I say, it's going to take years, not weeks or months. But it could be the case that we come out stronger than ever. Who knows? Okay. And here is another good one. Now, this is an Indian guy, and he is discussing some of this as well. Now, it's all in gibberish. I can't understand what he's saying, but the subtitles are there, so I'll just kind of read the translation for you guys. And here is we Dravidians, and it says, when it comes to China, say moi moi. Okay. But this is a pretty good presentation, I think. And this is something I like to highlight too, because Trudeau has been doing everything he can, it seems, to polarize India against us. There was the whole, debacle with the costume party that he had for himself when they went on the India trip. And then he was accusing Modi of carrying out a political assassination on Canadian soil, and he didn't seem to have anything to back that up. So there's been all kinds of this diplomatic turmoil with India. And then more recently, like there was a lot of stuff about, the Hindu statue in Brampton that a lot of people were kind of getting rather upset about. And I'm trying to make the case here that it's like, if there's anybody we should be allying with in that region right now, it's India. They have a larger population than China as of recently. They have a serious military. They're nuclear. They're a former British colony, English-speaking, democratic, capitalistic, hardworking, educated, and polite. Now, the average IQ in India is somewhere around 76 or 78, so not so great. But they have that caste system there, so that counts for a lot of the lower castes, where a lot of the elites, a lot of the higher caste people are the ones that are coming here, like through the student programs and stuff like that. It tends to be we're skimming off the top. We've been brain draining India for years. We used to complain that the Americans did that to us, and we're doing that to them. I don't think that this is a good solution for anybody, really. How is India ever supposed to rise to become any kind of a superpower to rival China if we just keep brain draining them like that? But if there's anybody in the region that can counter China, it probably is India. I think that we probably could be doing a better job of making allies of them. And the thing is that they share a border with China, so they understand that threat, and they share a border with Pakistan, so they understand the threat of Islamism as well. So I think that they're really good potential allies for us. And here we seem to be doing everything we can to drive polarization between us and them. So, but this guy's got a good presentation. Let's check it out. Okay, China is making a tributary for us. Here we are in Guarda, China. Oh, geez, it's fast. China has increased. Humban totem has increased. We have to begin to stop it. Its new army has come and docked here. So he's got a map here he's showing. And here, Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh. So he's showing, okay, there's the Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh, and he's got these lines that he's drawn on the map. Surrounded, okay? So, and that's the thing too, is, what's it called? Sri Lanka, right? That was just imploded there about a year ago, running that WEF agenda to go after the fertilizer and all that stuff. So they imploded Sri Lanka, and there was there are those contracts. Chinese Communist Party, through the Belt and Road Initiative, now has ports, international ports in Sri Lanka, and that's their kind of economic dominance that they do. They offer all these contracts, give all these big loans, and now they have a 99-year lease to have a dock in Sri Lanka just off the coast of India there as well. So here's this guy saying, yeah, China's got to surround it. Made from a CPEC road from here. And here, Tibet itself is here. And turn the throat upside down in Myanmar. Yep. Sorry, he's going really fast. Aung San Suu Kyi went to jail. The army was overthrown. Who was joined from here? Cox's Bazar, Mandarga. Joined, we have been surrounded. Yes. And there you can see in this map here, you can see Sri Lanka. It's right off the coast of India. And they got that massive international port there that they get to use however they please because they bankrupted them. And now they're on the hook, right? They have that 99-year lease. And has China in shortage of money, or are they short of money? I think he means to say technology and everything else. It has only made a part of its army that will cover India properly. This is part of the Air Force. This is part of the Navy. This part of the Army has made a part, and it is made a part of the Army. This is probably not translated in English very well. That will look after America. And apart from that, it has kept a reserve army that will fight with them. Our foreign policy does the right thing for Pakistan. Americans have been doing that for years too. Pakistan's not really an ally. That was the funding for 9/11 came from a Pakistani general, for crying out loud. Our foreign policy does the right thing for Pakistan. But when we look at China's matter, we get moi moi, just cry. China is making a tributary for us. Okay, it's going back again. Okay, so yeah, I think what he's saying here is we understand that Pakistan is a threat and we treat them as such, but we haven't been doing that for China. And my understanding is that they have these little skirmishes, especially the Nepalese, the Gurkhas in the mountains there with the border of China all the time. So they probably have an issue of elite capture happening in India as well. And again, I'm just going to say, like, wouldn't they make good allies? Because they understand these threats, and also because they're a liberal democracy. They're the largest democracy in the world, and they're capitalistic, and they have that heritage of a former British colony, and English speaking. They're capitalistic, all this stuff. So I think we should be allying with them, and it seems to be the case that the elites are doing everything they can to polarize these two populations. So, okay, and here is George Carlin again. He says, the obedient always think of themselves as virtuous rather than cowardly. Yes, indeed. Lots of insight there from the great George Carlin. And, well, look at me. I am right on time today. I was a little long last night, but feels like I've been out of the saddle for a while because I took a little time off for the holidays now to work on my court challenges, and I do have some court dates coming up. So you guys can probably expect that I'll be intermittent with the live streams as I as I get closer to my court challenges and stuff like this, my court dates. But yeah, that is the priority, obviously. All right, guys. So that's it for me today. I'll throw out a few comments before I sign off. And Gary is saying China-Indo wars and 80 million Hindus murdered by Islam. Yeah, I don't think that, like, Pakistan was, I think originally part of India's territory, but that was after the fall of the Ottoman Empire. That kind of got carved out for Islam. It is the Islamic State of Pakistan, by the way. So, and there were all kinds of there were those terrorist attacks back in the mid 2000s there, where they had gunmen roaming around the streets in India, and it was something like 80 odd people killed in these mass shootings and stuff like that. So it wasn't 80, it was like 200 or something. I'd have to go and look that up again. But yeah, they understand that threat, and I don't think they're going to be taking a lot of Gazans in, and they understand the threat of China. So I think they're going to make good allies, or they should be making good allies anyway. And And Marion is saying, excellent show, Jeff. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks very much. And Jonathan is saying, it was love you, Jeff. Thank you. Thank you for your efforts. Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Thanks a lot. I'm glad that you guys are getting a lot out of this. Darlene says, great live, Jeff. Enjoy the rest of your day, folks. And Wild Bill is saying, well done. Cheers, Jeff. And Evelyn says, take care all. Janet says, thanks, Jeff. Best of luck with your court case. Yeah, thank you. It is pretty taxing, I must say. Having to do all this stuff myself. I had a lawyer, I have a retainer, but my lawyer has had to bow out because she's completely overwhelmed, being the only lawyer in Nova Scotia who gives a damn about protecting the rights of citizens. So she's on medical leave now. So, and Gary is saying this is over 1,600 years. Yeah, about 1,700. I think you're referring to political Islam in particular, and I do talk about that around here a lot because I do think it's a threat, political Islam, and it's very relevant to the crisis that we are faced with now. So, Janet is saying, "Have a great day, everyone." Leanne says, "Thank you for the great show, Jeff." Gives us a heart. Terry says, "Great show, Jeff. Thanks, brother. I appreciate you." Another one of my favorite boomers there. And we got RJ Sawyer over on Rumble saying, hit the like button. Yes, please, everybody, please hit those like buttons so it feeds the algorithm, or so I'm told. I could use all the help I can get. Obviously, it looks like we got a pretty good crowd over there on Rumble, but 0 likes so far. Maybe I need to do a refresh. Let me look at that before I admonish you guys. Nope, we're not at 0, but I could still use some more. Anyway, I do appreciate the support, everybody. And until next time, stay frosty and stay safe out there. Oh, good Lord. Look at this. I flubbed it. Where is my... Here it is. Okay, guys. Check you later.